It's back to school and back to work for the Nittany Lions. The starting quarterback may be new. Many of the big guys up front are familiar. That leads to high expectations in the preseason.
I definitely think we have that championship chemistry.
Coach Franklin enters his 10th season with the same coordinators on both sides of the ball. That stability allows Mike Yurcich and Manny Diaz to work towards one common goal.
We both have the same goal in terms of the category we want to lead the nation in. And we want to lead the nation in wins.
There's still summer left to go camping. Athletic Director Pat Kraft talks to us about Big Ten expansion, and a scrap medal is handed out for staying put. A new season of Nittany Game Week starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Year 3, Episode 1 of Nittany Game Week. The 2023 season is about to start, and the band is back together for another year. I'm Todd Sadowski, alongside former Nittany Lions assistant coaches Jake Paterno and Tom Bradley. Guys, it appears you had a coaches conference in the offseason, and the decision was to do it all over again.
Well, it's never dull. So, we got nothing else going on this fall. Why not do a show again?
It was a tough vote, though. It was a tough vote.
Tough call, right?
Tough call.
We needed someone to break the tiebreaker.
Yes.
Probably. I'll just figure out which one of you didn't want to do this. Well, look, we're excited to cover the 2023 Nittany Lions. Still have a week to wait for the season opener at Beaver Stadium against the Mountaineers of West Virginia. But let's get to our opening drive. Look, the 2023 squad littered with talent on both sides of the ball. Coach Franklin enters his 10th season as the head coach, second longest tenured in the Big Ten. Coach and his staff have constructed perhaps their most complete roster.
I think there's talent everywhere you look on this field. Some of it is more experienced than others. We'll talk about the quarterback position in a little bit. But some of the key spots you need to be good along the offensive line are, veteran stuff.
Yeah, really good. Love some guys on defense. Got a great corner. Couple good linebackers, couple good edge rushers. Things should be good on defense.
You mentioned guys that on defense, they've been recognized already. There's some guys that are some really big, things are expected of them. Preseason rank for the team from the AP is 7th. Plenty of analysts place the Lions in the top 5. Coach understands, could be a special year.
I think the stability on the staff, the more depth, those things are good, and I think they typically lead to giving yourself a chance to be successful.
Now, coming off a Rose Bowl win over Utah, only one more week to go until the kickoff to the new season.
Of course, they go into the season with a new quarterback. That, to me, Tom, is the biggest question mark. A friend of mine that raised hunting dogs used to say, it doesn't matter what the breeding is until you go out and shoot the gun off. If the dog goes after the rabbit, then you got one. If it's hiding behind your leg, then you don't have one. So we'll find out pretty quickly in week 1 whether it's going to hide behind the leg or go get it.
But the one thing I do like, they got him in a lot of reps last year. He got to play a lot. He's not walking in there and never having been involved in it.
Right.
Yeah, both Drew Aller and Bo Prabula paid close attention to Sean Clifford's day-to-day habits and leadership. They're bigger, stronger, perhaps a little faster, and undoubtedly more comfortable with the offense.
Confident and comfortable just because I've been in the system another year as opposed to last year where I was only in it for like 6 months or whatever the timeline was. A lot more familiar with everything and how we want to operate as a team and as an offense.
It's my 4th camp, 2 spring balls, and this is my 2nd fall camp, 2nd year in the playbook. I think mentally, everything is slowed down on the field and you get to master those plays instead of have to worry about your assignments. So I think, from a maturity standpoint on the field, everything has slowed down and become easier.
And Bo is a heck of an athlete. It's possible you could see both players on the same field if Coach Yurcich decides to get creative. No matter who's on the field when next year rolls around, there will be some new and strange conference opponents. The Big Ten grows a little larger with the addition of Oregon and Washington, Jay.
Well, if you look at what might have been, you take a look at that home schedule. You had USC coming in, Ohio State coming in, Nebraska coming in, Michigan State. Really good. I'm like, this is a great home schedule. And now, less than 2 months later, it's gone. Yeah,
Tom, as we look at the 2025 schedule and you see some of those opponents, it doesn't really matter who's in front of you, but there's going to be some really cool matchups. You worked at UCLA. It's going to be fun to see them, but you're adding teams like Oregon and Washington.
Yeah, it's just an exciting time to be in the Big Ten. I like the way this is going to work out for everybody. The only problem I see is the travel.
Well, the good thing is if you're the Penn State, going to Michigan, Michigan State, and USC and Iowa in the same year, Hopefully that gets a little change because those are all road games in 2025, and obviously they're gone.
Yeah,
Thank
can't
God.
wait for the new schedules to come out.
Yep.
Well, these two do some heavy lifting for us on Nittany Game Week. We have another teammate that's been our road warrior the first couple of seasons. Andrew Callista joins us every week with some perspective on this year's team. Andrew, what's on your mind in the preseason when it comes to the blue and white?
Expectations, right? They are sky high, and we hear a ton about them. In fact, you guys just covered it. For the fans, what do we hear? We hear all about comparisons to the team in 2017. Well, I'm here to say, just stop that right now. And here is why, because this team's makeup is totally different. As we've heard from Coach James Franklin, the depth is better. He is 100% right. But there is no Trace McSorley at quarterback, no Mike Gesicki. I mean, those are top-end guys. For me, the reasons to be excited for this team comes down to the big uglies, and no, not the ones in the stands, the ones up front. The O-line is experienced, and I think they have a real mean streak, and they are confident being led on the outside with tackles Caden Wallace and Olu Fashanu.
I don't have any missed assignments throughout 10 practices. I have no sacks throughout 10 practices, so I'm doing really, really good.
No one has bigger expectations for the season than ourselves. For us, the biggest thing is to just, stay focused, stay consistent, not get, too entangled with, all the outside noise.
There is a reason to be excited, and James Franklin, when he references big boy football, this is what he expects to see. The talk nationally about Drew Aller putting Penn State over the top. Nothing helps a new quarterback to success than a nice protective blanket up front and running backs to control the game.
Well, it's more important, Todd, than ever to have that offensive line because you're going from a mobile quarterback to a less mobile. Got to protect him, make his life easier.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Everybody talks about you got to have this, we're multiple on offense. No, pick what you're good at, and I think this year they're going to be able to run the rock when they have to.
Yeah, good to have Andrew along, and thanks for the report. Can't wait to see that O-line in action. Still to come, our scouting report where we keep the clock rolling. Jay and Tom discuss the new clock rules and how it affects play calling and increases the urgency on the sidelines. You're watching Nittany Game Week. We are back on Nittany Game Week. Same crew as last season with some new stuff to talk about, including rule changes for 2023. 17 years these two worked together on the same staff. Let's send it over to our offensive and defensive experts, Jay Paterno and Tom Bradley, for the preseason scouting report, fellas.
Well, Todd, everybody's trying to shorten the game. We're going to try and shorten this segment, so we're going to go over the new rules. Important rules. So let's take a look at number one. When the offense gains a first down, the clock will no longer stop to award a first down with less than 2 minutes remaining in second and fourth quarters. Why? They want to get the length of the games down. Let's take a look at some other sports. The NFL average length of a game is 3 hours, 12 minutes. College football, 324, which is up 15 minutes in the last 15 years. Major League Baseball made some changes and has gone from 306 to 238. So that seems to be the emphasis. So let's talk about how that's going to work. First downs, 39 first downs in average per Penn State game last year with both teams combined. So every time somebody gets a first down, if they're inbounds, that clock will continue to roll. Next rule change, consecutive charged team timeouts. So you cannot call a timeout 2 times in a row during a stopped play. One team cannot do that. And why? Again, length of games. Now let's look at a very famous example of that rule. 2018, Penn State, Ohio State. Let's take a look at the video. 4th and 5, critical point in the game. Penn State calls timeout to see what Ohio State's doing on defense. They come out, they run the clock all the way down. Ohio State looks at Penn State. They say, okay, we're going to call timeout. Then Penn State comes off that timeout, and they say, okay, let's see what Ohio State's doing, and let's call a timeout. So 3 consecutive timeouts. So at a key point in the game, there was 6 minutes between the third down play. So again, if you get rid of that rule, you cut that down, the game goes faster. Now let's talk about what this might mean in terms of the difference in the game. You get into the Rose Bowl. Let's take a look at Utah here. They run a play, they're huddling, but when they get the first down, the clock stops for 7 or 8 seconds. But between the plays, if you look at total, 35 seconds of actual time, Tom, runs off the clock. What do you think that means for the future with that rule now, with the clock is no longer stopped?
What I see is you're going to get into whatever personnel grouping you have on the field. You're going to not be able to switch it all the time. You're going to get it, all of a sudden, you're going to get on that ball again, get ready to roll right away as fast as you can. You'll have that personnel grouping, will give you multiple looks that will be different maybe than you've seen in the past from that particular grouping.
Yeah, and probably more no huddle. And if you look at the analysis of Penn State, if 2/3 of the first downs last year were inbounds, that's at 2:36 in terms of time the game will shorten by. Not massive changes, but subtle changes to keep the game going. I think, as you mentioned, same personnel groups, no huddle. Now, we just looked at Utah. 35 seconds ran off the clock. Penn State goes to no huddle. Same game. Watch this play. Penn State runs this pass, gets a first down, and they are on the ball snapping again in less than 13 seconds. So I think those are some of the things you're going to see as we go forward in college football. The last part, I think, where you see the impact is the 4-minute offense. Obviously outside of 2 minutes, but when trying to run the clock out, here's Penn State trying to run the ball down against Northwestern with the clock not stopping on the first down. There's another 7 or 8 seconds you can pick up each play where that clock is running.
It's going to change more NFL-like.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be.
And you as a defense coordinator wanting that clock to run, that
Yes,
probably makes you happy.
Yes, I do.
So those are some of the things to keep an eye on for this year as the rule changes and what you're going to see trends in college football. And a guy who's always on top of the trends, back over to Todd Sadowski.
Well, I try. We'll see if we can keep that rolling in 2023, shall we? And after all these years, look at the chemistry between those two coaches over there. Warms my heart. It's as if they complete each other's sentences, right? So for Penn State offensive coordinator Mike Yursich, defensive coordinator Manny Diaz return, I asked them both at Media Day how their relationship is growing as they head into their second year together.
We both have the same goal in terms of the category we want to lead the nation in. We want to lead the nation in wins, right? Early in my career, I was as fortunate enough to be a part of a staff at NC State. We were #1 in the nation in total defense, and we finished 5 and 6 that year. There's no ring for that. We didn't have a parade. Nobody noticed. No one remembers that. That's why I keep telling that story.
Egos can get in the way, and I'd like to think, and I hope he'd feel the same way about me, is that we're professionals and that we're trying to, become the best team that we can. So our communication has been very good. We're not, we're very competitive at the same time. We want to win each drill, and we want to win the scrimmage and practices and that sort of thing. But we also understand that there has to be communication and a togetherness within that.
Love that answer from Coach Diaz. They want to lead the country in wins. Important to get everyone rowing in the same direction. Time to take a break. When we come back, our Impact interview. He's been on the job for over a year, already dealing with unprecedented changes. We catch up with Nittany Lions Athletic Director Dr. Pat Kraft when Nittany Game Week returns.
Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Welcome back. Time for our Impact interview. This year's first guest is the same as last year's first guest, Dr. Pat Kraft, the perfect leadoff man because there's always a ton of issues to discuss from the off-season, and he happens to be the boss for the athletic department in Happy Valley. Pat, thanks so much for joining us again this year.
Happy to be here. It's great to see you guys. It feels like just yesterday we were all together a year ago.
Well, I got to tell you, we're going to get through that intimidating line over your head. We love it. That's a perfect spot for it. Keep that stuff right there. It's good stuff. So look, we threw a bunch of topics in a hat and just reached in to find a starting point, right? Never a dull moment on the job. Less than 2 months after the Big Ten releases the 2024 and 25 football matchups with a lot of excitement, they go ahead and add Oregon and Washington. So how hard is it with even a shorter window to get this scheduling completed?
I do think the system that the Big Ten put in place, which took a while to get us with the 2 LA schools and get us to a point where we released it, however months ago it was. I think they're going to try to make it as easy as possible. I don't know. I think there's a lot of moving parts. I don't have an answer for that. We had a call yesterday, starting to have that discussion. Oregon and Washington were on the calls. But look, they're shooting, I hope, in mid-September. I think it's really important a lot of us on the call. It's important for our fans to know where we're going and making plans. So they understand that. They understand the sense of urgency. So I have hope that it will get done ASAP.
Pat, currently there's a lot of discussion, and another topic that I know has certainly dominated the headlines this offseason, but there's a lot of discussion about congressional and federal legislation about NIL. Some of the proposals include some transfer portal limits, health care for current and former student athletes. For you personally, what are some of the things you believe would be critical to address in any legislation going forward?
Well, Jay, I think it's a really good question, and it's a little bit all of the above. I think we have to do a deep dive into where we are right now. I'm a big proponent, I think, of NIL. I think it's great, but I do think people are taking advantage of it. I think it's gotten into the world of recruiting inducements, and it's gotten a little out of hand. I do think we have to always take care of our the health and welfare of our student athletes, and if they come here, we got to make sure that they leave here in a really good spot, and that's physically, emotionally, mentally. I'm a very big believer in that. So I think healthcare is really important. But we do a lot in that space as it is, as you know. So we, as in college athletics, whether it's covering insurance and injuries and so on and so forth, I think the transfer portal, I do think, has to be looked at. I'm not opposed to transfers, but I just don't know if you're transferring 3 or 4 times. From an academic standpoint, I think that's really challenging, and it's hard for everybody involved, including the student athlete. And so I'm open to hearing, and hopefully we get some guidelines and everything that can unify us. I do not think having 50 different rules and regulations in different states, I do not think that's the right thing to do, but we'll work within the confines that we're given.
Dr. Kraft, one of your key initiatives at Penn State has been student athlete welfare and notably mental health for student athletes. What drives that, and why do you feel it's so important to destigmatize that part of athletics health?
Yes, Scrap, I appreciate that question. I just have seen it, really quick when I became an athletic director. One of the things that I don't know how many years ago it was, but it really, the more things that came across my desk, it was evident that mental health was a really, really big issue. And I know it's always been prevalent, and I think it's always been important, but the stress that is put on the student athlete, and I think our jobs as educators and leaders is to make sure that we build, we provide them a transformative experience here, and that has to do with their mental. I mean, and since I don't know, I've been an AD for 8-10 years now. I think it's since COVID and all the stresses with NIL and social media, mental health is, I think, the most important piece, not just in sports but in college. That's a really transformative time for just a college student. And then we want to go win national championships and make sure you obviously do the best you can in the classroom, and socially, don't you dare make a mistake, right? Like, there's a lot of pressure on our young athletes. And so we hired 4 mental health professionals. They've been amazing. We continue to talk about it from a destigmatization. Hey, listen, raise your hand. I try to talk to them like, I think it's important that everybody talks about it, because we shouldn't run and hide. And I want to build that culture. And I think we're there where people are really honest with themselves. We all know if you had a bad shoulder or a bad knee, you'd get it fixed. Well, your mind is the same way. And all of those pieces go into, oh, by the way, if you do all these things, you also, the outcomes of winning and being successful in life are part of it. So we really stress, every time I talk to the athletes, I want them to understand, take care of themselves, take care of each other. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. It's just so important.
Safe to say we could describe you as excitable. It's hard to tell that you're not still competing out there as you're watching and enjoying some of the events. So what was the best part of year 1 for you, and any surprises out there being a Nittany Lion?
Wow. There were a lot. Look, I feel very blessed to put on the Penn State gear every morning and put on the blue and white and come to the office. I mean, there's so much history and tradition here. There's so much opportunity. So, every day my family and I have been welcomed by the community in an incredible way. This is an amazing place. It really is. There's a soul here. There is no ceiling. We can win at everything. We can do it the right way. We have the blueprint is here. It's been established. You don't have to color outside the lines here. You can just do it this way and you can be successful. And so that has rung true when I got here. The I knew Penn State was big, and I knew it was powerful. It's why it was my dream job. But it is more, it is bigger and more powerful than I ever imagined. I mean, I remember getting off the bus at Purdue, and the fans that were there, I was like, "Holy cow! Like this is real." And then Jeff at the Final Four for lacrosse in Philly, and the bus and the people, and it's just the passion and the excitement for everything Penn State, not just us, but the institution.
Make sure you're hanging with us. We're going to step aside for the TV show to take a break. We will continue our interview. So if you want to see the entire conversation with Dr. Pat Kraft, make sure you go to NittanyGameWeek.com for the entire interview along with other web-exclusive content. Up next, his nickname is Scrap, and there are certain characteristics that go into earning that term of endearment. Characteristics Tom sees in others. He hands out our first Scrap Medal of the year after the break. We're heading into the final minutes on Nittany Game Week.
Scrap Medal is sponsored by the We Are In, voted #1 game day restaurant in Center County. Follow us on Facebook and visit thewearein.com or call for dinner or room reservations.
All right, we're back, ready for our first Scrap Medal Award winner, Tom. He is a very special guy.
It's an easy pick this week without even playing a game. Number 74, Olu Fashanu, who would have been a first-round draft pick, and he'd come out. He decides to come back. He makes the team better before the first game.
How about it? Him and his parents decided he wants to come back, get his degree, and he knows this offensive line could have some special chemistry.
Definitely think we have that championship chemistry. You know, with this group of guys, you know, everything's all natural. You know, we all love each other. You know, we spend so much time with each other, and we're a very close and tight-knit group. So I think that definitely is going to help a lot during the season.
Now, we finished with some pride picks. Jay, we gave away a cruise. What's happening this year for a contest?
Gonna give away another cruise this year, so gonna be a lot of fun. So make sure you go to NittanyGameWeek.com and
submit your pictures, because we'll be taking a lot of them, including you. A lot of pictures.
I'm coming this year.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of you going to be submitted on the Pride Picks page. All right, for Jay and Tom, I'm Todd. Thanks so much for watching Nittany Game Week. We'll see you next time.